On January 22, 1879, in the remote hills of Natal, South Africa, one of history's most shocking military defeats was about to unfold. A British army that had conquered continents believed they were unstoppable. They were about to learn they were wrong. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Brackenbury reviewed his orders one final time. The mission was simple: invade Zululand, crush King Cetshwayo's warriors, and claim the territory for the British Empire. Brackenbury commanded over 1,300 soldiers, British regulars, colonial volunteers, and African auxiliaries. They brought rifles, cannons, and centuries of military superiority, or so they thought. Just 20 kilometers away, King Cetshwayo had mobilized his impi, his warrior regiments. Over 20,000 Zulu soldiers were moving toward the British position, and they were about to prove that discipline and numbers could defeat even the most advanced European weapons. The morning of January 22nd began like any other. Soldiers cooked breakfast. Officers reviewed their positions. No one suspected that by sunset, the British army would suffer one of its worst defeats. At 8 a.m., scouts returned with urgent news. The Zulu army had been sighted. They were closer than anyone expected. But Brackenbury made a critical decision. He would not retreat. Instead, he would fight. The British arranged their troops in a long, thin line across the valley floor. Rifles faced outward. The artillery was positioned in the center. Every soldier believed the superiority of British firepower would prevail. At 10:30 a.m., a scout on the ridge suddenly pointed to the horizon. The Zulu army appeared like a living wave, moving across the hills with precision and purpose. King Cetshwayo had organized his warriors into a traditional formation called the Horns of the Buffalo. Two flanking forces would encircle the British position, while the main force attacked from the front. The British soldiers opened fire. Rifles cracked. The cannon boomed. Hundreds of Zulu warriors fell in the first volley. But they didn't stop. They ran faster. The Zulu warriors moved with incredible speed and coordination. Unlike European armies that marched in rigid formations, the Zulu impi flowed across the terrain like water, adapting to every hill and valley. The British right flank began to buckle. Officers shouted orders to hold the line, but the Zulu warriors were already encircling them. The left flank, commanded by experienced soldiers, held firm, for now. Brackenbury realized the catastrophic mistake. The British line was too thin, the Zulu forces were too numerous, and the encirclement was nearly complete. The order to retreat was given, but it was already too late. The Zulu forces had cut off every escape route except one narrow pass to the north. Hundreds of British soldiers tried to escape through that narrow passage. They fought desperately, stabbing with bayonets, firing their rifles point blank. Many didn't make it. Lieutenant Colonel Brackenbury fought to the end. He was killed defending the artillery position, refusing to abandon his post or his men. The battle lasted less than 2 hours. When it was over, 1,200 British and colonial soldiers were dead. The Zulu had lost around 2,000 warriors, a devastating cost. But they had won. News of the defeat raced across South Africa and back to Britain. It was unthinkable. The invincible British army had been crushed by African warriors with spears and shields. But the British response was swift and overwhelming. Reinforcements were rushed to Natal. Within months, the Royal Navy landed 5,000 more soldiers. This time, the odds had shifted completely. What happened next was the inevitable consequence of colonial warfare. Superior numbers and firepower eventually overwhelmed even the most disciplined warrior culture. King Cetshwayo knew the strategic reality. He could win battles, but he could not win a war against the full might of the British Empire. Still, his warriors fought on. The next major battle came at Khambula on March 29, 1879. This time, the British were prepared. The Zulu attacked with the same ferocity they had shown at Isandlwana. The assault began. Thousands of Zulu warriors charged across open ground toward the British positions. The British artillery opened fire, cutting down warriors in massive numbers. But this time, there was no collapse of the British line. The fortifications held. The superior firepower, combined with prepared positions, was overwhelming. After several hours of desperate fighting, the Zulu forces withdrew. They had lost nearly 1,500 warriors. The British suffered less than 50 casualties. The tide had turned. Over the following months, the British pursued the Zulu forces relentlessly. Village after village fell. The once mighty impi was fragmented and exhausted. On July 4th, 1879, King Cetshwayo was captured. His kingdom was defeated. The British had what they came for, control of Zululand. But the victory at Isandlwana was never forgotten. It remains one of the greatest military shocks in British history, a moment when the empire's armor had a fatal crack. The Zulu warriors who fought there had proven something revolutionary. Discipline and organization could challenge European military dominance, even if technology ultimately favored the colonizers. Within months, British colonial rule was firmly established in Zululand. The kingdom was broken up and divided among chiefs loyal to the British crown. King Cetshwayo was initially imprisoned, then eventually allowed to return to a diminished kingdom, but never as the sovereign ruler he once was. The Zulu War of 1879 became a turning point in African resistance to colonialism. It showed that indigenous forces could defeat European armies in open battle, but also that colonialism's superior resources and reinforcements were ultimately unstoppable. Today, Isandlwana is remembered as one of history's great military upheavals, a moment when David nearly defeated Goliath before Goliath regrouped and ultimately prevailed. The battle claimed nearly 1,400 lives on a single day, making it one of the bloodiest clashes of the 19th century. But more importantly, it shattered the myth of European military invincibility. In January 1879, on a hillside in Natal, Africa showed that it could fight back. But history would show that fighting back was not enough to stop the tide of colonialism.